Right, I think that's doing a bit better. So, hello guys again, for whoever it was who was on before. We're back here for part 5 of the city building series. I've lowered the bitrate on the stream, but we are going to be working a little bit outside with some of the third-party tools that I use. There's links in the description for nitrogen, which we'll be firing up at some point to generate a height map. But mainly in game, we're going to have a quick look at, as of the title says, the first concept prefabs for the open sewer system, which is something I brought over from the original Slaanhatten idea. The first time I built something like this, though, I wasn't really thinking of a nice jigsaw-like system that would enable us to pick it up and move it and, have it work together and interact properly with other things. Uh, So it's the same kind of shape, roughly. Same sort of idea. Think Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, or if you want a movie reference, Los Angeles, I believe they're in Terminator 2 Judgment Day, where Arnie and John Connor are bombing along in the sewers on the motorbike getting chased by the T-1000 in the truck. So we're going to have a system that works exactly like the city blocks, where we're going to have pieces like this that are basically 107 by 107, and we'll also have skinnier bits that'll cover the gaps in the street. Because depending on how we've laid the city out, you might want to put these tiled next to each other with no gap. But if you're working within a grid, you still might want a continuous system. So in that sort of case, we'll just turn the roads that would normally be on the streets into little mini sewer sections with bridges on. And I think that'll help add the skyline and the detail of the city, the overall feel. So this one, as you can see, is just the basic idea of a straight section. We've got more ways to get into the sewer system, and we account for all of the connections that run underneath the streets for those streets that do have sewers. So again, we've got more ways to get in and out, and more systems interacting with each other. If you've been following from the beginning, you'll remember this prefab, which was designed in particular to fit against this purple slot. And I've just integrated this into this actual build, and it fits relatively nicely. So every time we use this prefab, we would get 2 extra entrances up top that are instantly recognizable from the city. Because you've got to imagine we would have streets, typically anyway, running up and down here on either side. So basic and simple with just enough little detail. I mean, there's no decoration or anything like that at this point. But I like little rooms like this. I'm definitely going to put some water in here. I think it'll say on the corner section there might actually be water in there. But I needed to make the initial Slaanhatten layout work, a straight section, a corner, and then some kind of, I think there's going to be 5 bridges over it in total, and 4 of them are 9 meter wide. So the 3 initial prefabs in the set, if we go over to the open sewer, is going to be this section, which is the test section. We've then got a very, very rough and dirty corner section. But again, you've got to imagine how this is going to work within the city, where we're either connecting with another sewer section or with another sewer street section on those 2 sides, and on these sides we're going to connect against normal streets. So I'm not too sure how crazy to go here, because I want to keep, where the prefabs are getting sort of big like this, we need to keep as much terrain filler as possible, because you've got to imagine all of this becomes invisible when the game's actually loaded up. Whereas big blocks of concrete and all sorts of extra textures that are down underneath there will still be generated. So if you work on keeping the texture memory down at this stage, then we should be okay. But I mean, outside of these initial areas, it's not really a block heavy space when you consider that this is 100 square meters basically. But yeah, we'll do something here. We'll either design these to cap the tunnels off, or maybe we might have enough space, or we might just build a custom prefab that fits up these sides. I'm not too sure yet. We might We could probably introduce those little rooms that I showed you in the other prefab. We could maybe have one on either side of these corner pieces. I'm not too sure how that's going to work though, because to keep the corner and the sewer smooth, we don't have a lot of topsoil over here. So we can definitely make something work, but initially it'll just be, we'll get this all cornered off nice and neat. We'll get the inverted corner built over here. And that's essentially pretty much done. And then, so I actually knocked the measurements up. I initially had these sections here right at the edges, forgetting that sewer doesn't run right to the edge. So this is what I meant. If you can picture a street, in fact, why don't we just load one up next to it? And then it'll be a bit easier to show you the comparison and where I kind of started. And then hopefully you can start to see how the system will start to come together, but we'll be going straight into the world editor to see all these pieces in action anyway, because there's enough bits down there now to really to kind of show it off. And you'll see the connections with the streets and the other underground sewer systems that we've got going on. We want to finish streets at the 107 meter wall. So I'm just going to load that in there, and then we'll rotate it. So you've got to imagine in between the city blocks, normally we've been dropping these streets down with or without sewer sections underneath them. And depending how we've laid the city blocks out, we might end up where we can put 2 city blocks of sewers together back to back. But in the instance where there's streets, we still need to fill this little gap. And that's just what this is going to do. And if we do have streets that have the sewers underneath as well, it doesn't matter really. These will get wiped out, and we'll design it to have the same sort of connection at the end here. So if you can imagine, both of these are coming off a junction. We're going to essentially run into the same, at least this very first piece will be the same, but we could just make it a dead end or whatever. So it's going to be a seamless transition depending on how we build it. But like I say, we'll see this a bit better now when we dive into the actual map. That's that one there. And one of the problems that I'm finding is, because these prefabs are cutting into terrain, the mesh files, like the distance sort of terrain PY thing like you got going on there, they work okay, but because they're eating into actual terrain, you can still see it just in the distance. I think if the city wasn't in wasteland biome and you could see further, I think it would be a lot easier to make out, but you'll see what I mean as we fly around. So there, you can see the way the terrain's being slowly fed away. So in the title, obviously I mentioned we'll be editing the height map, and what I want to do is basically cut out, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I know the exact size, the width of the sewer, I can measure that now. So I can just set a brush and paint.net to be that width and at least get this groove like out of the way. But you can, even at this stage, you can see, you know, we've basically, if you can think of this being built in districts, we've got like a piece here, a grid piece here, and then however we choose to do the in-between and the surround. And then we've got a big divider in the city, and then we'll maybe do another grid section piece on the opposite side. And we'll possibly just roll with different themes, different colour prefabs or different styles to make like different unique looking areas. So this is where we need a 19 meter road section. So that's just solid terrain. But I intend to have an open piece here as well. And then I'd like to work that somehow into the dock sort of section that we'll have surrounding. And then we'll really make this inner island piece here like a really dense, like concrete jungle style. But if I run, so yeah, so we've got the streets here. So we can run around here. or get down with ladders. But I'll show you what I mean with the system starting to link up now, because it really does start to make a difference. So this is where we connect to the street. So this is the city block, this is the street, which we can see if we zoom right in. And this is the other thing that I like, is with some of these tunnels run parallel all the time, and then other times they'll just offshoot into corners. So it's hard to tell if you're better off running through the centerpiece for the more longer, straighter sections to get from A to B, or if you can take shortcuts through certain ways. But I'm picturing like the burning barrels and the mattresses, and just making this like a little hobo crack den or something. Having similar sorts of decorations, you know, and then obviously we've still got sleepers and debris and things like that to work into it. But the other thing I like is the idea that you could possibly get like a 4x4 or a mini bike, a motorbike into the sewer system, potentially have a drive around as well. I don't know how it's going to work with all these right angles, and I imagine the Jeep's just going to smash and bounce off everything. You'd run the wrong way. If you go south, and this is mainly just to show off how you know, you could enter through the sewer system, go investigate in a tunnel, and then 5 minutes later you just kind of think of where am I? But yeah, I think we definitely need to start thinking about getting water in there, even if it's just for initially for this one block. But it's deliberately shallow enough as well so that you could like drive across here. I'm gonna have to test, see if you can actually mount these lips on a bike. Otherwise we'll have to factor, I think you'd be okay bouncing across there at speed, but if you're actually in the water. But it means also we can hide sleepers underneath there, like lying down sleepers, and have them just stand up out of nowhere as you run along. And then again we'll have the entrances up, some way to join onto here, and we'll make simple bridges, because I think when you look down here, so you're going to have 2 bridges there, another one, some kind of bigger, more detailed 19-meter wide one here. So we're getting different layers and different ways to interact with the layers. And again, because we're still building to the spec of the rest of the city, there's nothing stopping you. You know, you could just rotate those around and bring your sewer right the way across. Make it as big or as little as you wanted. There's no reason why we couldn't T-junction or cross-section this off. I mean, I don't think we need much more than what I've got here. It's enough of a run. I mean, that's 2, 4, 5. Say another one and another one. So that's like 700 square meters, just above. Probably closer to 800 with that many city blocks. So it's a nice wedge of empty-ish space that can break up the dense areas. That's still kind of going to fit the theme. You know, it's this type of stuff, I think, that gets people just running like, oh, where does this go? Oh, look, tunnel. And then this might be the first time you even know that there's a sewer or a sub-level. Because it's not always going to be that apparent when you're flying around here that you can just drop underneath. But I think once this starts to get plugged up, once we start to fill it with prefabs, the next step really is to start integrating quests in, or at least looking at how we could use a quest system to get people doing fetch quests or something where they've definitely got to run into the sewers. I'm liking the idea of sending them, because I'm sure you can set the point where you initiate the quest. So I'm kind of thinking in my head that, you know, I could add to one of the prefabs the starter in this room. So when you're following your map, you might get to this street and then suddenly realise, hold on, you know, I've got to get here. and then it becomes 1 from this point. How do you get into the system? Oh, I can get in from over here. How do I get from this point over to where my quest starts? And I think those types of things, and you're not going to need a lot, but I think you could, considering we're going to be in a more difficult zone anyway with this all being wasteland, and these are going to be, I wouldn't say sleeper heavy, but there's always going to be a zombie presence down here. We've got to make it so that you can't just easily base out, because I mean, let's be honest, a sleeping bag put in the correct spot. But I don't know. I don't know how much of a barrier this kind of system would be for a horde, because they could drop down, run around, and I think the first few hordes that you try to hide down there from might kind of work, but after that, because they dig now as well. So I haven't even done the first horde in my survival game. I keep ending up jumping into the air and building things. But yeah, that's the initial idea with the prefabs at this point anyway. And the thing I like about this set is we don't really need much more. As long as I do a good job of the base bridge and the base wide bridge, that's essentially everything we're going to need. One more city block to maybe finish the sewer off and open it out to the dock area, or have some kind of run where it interacts with the river to feed out. Because I mean, it's essentially a big overflow in case the river floods, I think is how it would be used. Or if the city floods, somewhere to dump all the water. But yeah, I like that. But I want it, like I say, get rid of this terrain, because if we flip that over, I'm thinking I can use this bump as an indicator and say this corner where it touches is roughly the centre, and then I just take a channel out of here, because I'm not too worried if I take too much away. I can see the roads, and that's the main thing that I don't want to clip over and fuck up. So I'm thinking, like, I don't know, 85 meters size brush, and just bring that straight down. And then again, I can use this road on the... I could modify the Splat 3 for this one-off paint just to make it even easier again, but this doesn't have to be too accurate. I just need to take the majority of the terrain away. As long as I get enough so that you don't see that in the background, then I'm quite happy. Not that some of these mesh files look any better. You can see using the Control and G to flip the blocks over doesn't always work as planned. Don't forget to smash that like button if you like what you're saying. The more likes we get, the more of an idea I have of the things that people want to see. I know when to expand on the systems, when to just, well, not abandon things, but, you know, not focus so much. Right. So then I guess it's time to look at the Project Slaanhatten world and how I've got it set up. If I just find OBS, we jump over now to the side screen. Right, so this here, I've just opened, you can say I'm in my 7 Days to Die data worlds, Project Slaanhatten. So this is the world folder that you can download from the forums now. In the bottom here, I've downloaded nitrogen and just extracted it here. Gets a bit glitchy sometimes, especially when I'm running the game and OBS and all the other sorts of stuff. So I'll just bring me chat back onto the top in case somebody wants to say hello. But yeah, it's a bit of a finicky program, but basically I'm going to use nitrogen to generate the raw file. So I'm by no means an absolute pro at this, but I am quite familiar with my process, which is kind of as follows. So this is paint.net, and I basically, you can see down here all the different layers. We've got the Heightmap, which is not the raw. The Heightmap is this file, but yours might be called datem.png or datem.whatever, or you'll have a custom one, or you're loading something up from nitrogen. But basically that's my Heightmap, that's my terrain, that sets the mountains and the hills and the rivers and all that sort of stuff. So I'm loading these as different layers. So I've got my Heightmap, my biomes PNG, my Splat 3, which is that one. Layer 4 is where all these stupid squiggly blocks come from. I took that on and off. And that was just me sort of spitballing and having a bit of a thrash around trying to plan things in my head. Hello, Oak. That's alright, man. Like I say, come say hello. But if you are interested in learning how to modify, or at least seeing how I modify my height map, I'm about to do all that now. So it might be a bit more of a tutorial than what the videos have been as of late. But generally, this PDN is Paint.net's own sort of format, so I can save it, I can modify it and save and do whatever I want and not have to worry about harming any of the files that I'm using. And then if I want to, in this example, we're going to be working on the height map, so I'm going to leave these layers on for reference. And we'll go through nitrogen in a minute when we actually need it. So for now, I'm just going to full screen that. I'll just make some space there. Now I don't need layer 4, which is just my design layer, basically. Just think of it as that. The biomes is going to make it a bit hard to see the different shades, and that doesn't really matter too much either. I tend to tweak the biomes around the terrain after watching Captain Crunch's videos, so I'm not too worried about that. So I've got the game open and I'm in the world editor because, like I say, we're going to have to use a lot of reference points to keep this accurate. And we know, well, these grid squares here are just under 100 meters, so it's quite off-putting having this here and not being able to see mine, because now that the game is able to recognize the roads and the prefabs, I just thought, why dig around with trying to draw neat and tidy streets when me prefabs are going to dictate what we see in distant terrain anyway? So it was just all of a sudden not really needed. And then it means you can focus more on the other sorts of roads and the bits that you do need. But Splat 3 is a bit of a weird one at the minute. But yeah, it's not too hard. But if you're wondering why this isn't invisible just before we start editing terrain, it's because I originally drew my Splat 3 in Alpha 17 before we had a Splat 4 processed file in there as well, which I'll cover in another video. I think on my last video someone asks how to modify the Splat 3 file, and I give a brief description of the process that I went through, and he gave it a thumbs up and said it helped. So I'm just guessing it might help a few other people because it's very hard to find info on modifying the Splat 3, but we're not going to worry about that. So I'm going to take that layer off for now, because in fact actually I'm going to have to leave that on, but I'm going to select the layer that I'm going to work on. And if we flick back to the game quickly, actually, because I want to check how high this hill is, because I'm just going to use the color picker to pick the shade for whatever level I want to cut the sewer down into. I need to make sure that I choose something though that is actually low enough. Otherwise we might still see bumpy terrain in the horizon over the concrete at the bottom of the sewer. So if I just bring this on so you can see what I'm checking. Where are you? Game capture. And I'll bring my game up. So again, we want to come over here and just check the height of this stuff. Did I just fly the right way? Oh, let's just tap all there. And will we be able to see the sewer from here? Yeah. In fact, actually, if we just press F3, so that block is 36, so this layer is 35. If this is actually that height, then it'll work out quite nice. 39, 38, and that's going to be too low. 33. I think we can probably colour pick this. It's wide enough and flat enough and of the same height so that it shouldn't be too easy, too hard to distinguish in Paint.net. So if we flick that back over, there's the slider here. So I'm guessing this area here, we've got the gradual darkened climb there. That's where the actual river is. So we'll just get the colour picker here. We'll grab you. Where is... That's what I want. Just lock that onto there. So if I pick sorry. So if I was manually drawing something and I was making hills, this here, this V value is what I'm increasing. Now, it's not necessarily always 1 point increase here for one block in height, but it's around about that most of the time, I felt. But for us, we've got what? The city blocks 100, you lose about, it's going to need to be about 85 meters. I think that's definitely what we want. So I'm going to color pick that. We want full hardness. I don't want any blending. What do we want blending? Yeah, it might actually serve our purposes to be a bit softer here. And what this means, if you can imagine, I drew a circle here and you can see from the center to the edge of the brush, it's done the whole fade thing, and the hardness will kind of just determine how much it spreads out, how sharp your cliffs are, or how smooth they become. But we're gonna have to be careful, I think. And the brush will go straight to 85. So like I say, I know this is going to be roughly the center. We're going to start at the height. Hopefully there, that's going to affect the river. No. I'll do that. Yeah, actually that's not too bad. I want to go smaller before I really open this out, but I'm going to take off enough. We can still see the corner point that I was talking about earlier. So I think if I go to layer 4, we'll zoom out a little bit. Get the line tool up and what colour? Go for this horrible cyanish. So if I just make a line, not that way though. Into brush with solid. Oh shit, I've realised as well. I'm drawing on my DTM. What I want to do is just draw a marker on layer 4, just so that I can follow this line with the brush. And it's going to come roughly down to here. You can see straight away I didn't even stick to my initial plan with the sewer. I just thought it was a little bit too much. Right then, so let's get back down here. Yeah, so I basically want to be just on this side. So we'll go back down to here. Color pick that again, back to the brush, and then get this back to 85. Let's just bring that straight down. I'm just going to check in game. 1, 2, 3. So basically I was just counting the junctions there. 1, 2, 3. So I come all the way down past that. Now a line might have been better. Don't know. I'm a glutton for punishment sometimes. And I'm not too worried about... I'd rather not take away too much, but it's not a terrible thing if I do, because of, like I was saying earlier when we were looking at the prefab, I am going to try and keep a lot of terrain filler underground. So the game also does a good job of picking that up out of the prefab file as well. So between the prefab having the right terrain and the map not having the excess terrain, we should have a comfortable middle where it all works nice. Let me just get my chat back up. So I'm just looking in game, and this road here is just over halfway through the prefab. So I'm thinking something like that. Probably good enough there. And again, I'm just quickly diving into the game, because this is basically going to be a corner section. I'm going to have to... Oh, I was about to say I'm going to put the splat tray on so I can see the roads, but we can't see the roads because they're all in the prefabs. So this is going to be really tricky. I might actually have to go in there. Oh no, I can still measure roughly. So 3,800. Yeah, I think if I take that gorge to about just past 3,700, I'm just using the grid at the top. We go back on my brush. Keep it like that. Now what's going to be interesting is this is going to be slightly higher than... Not too fussed really though. But basically we've got a channel about that wide where the prefab meets this corner piece of road where it sticks out. That's my reference point here. So through that thickness. And if you're wondering, the two bumps were out of alignment. They were for an old... No, actually that's worked out quite okay. Because what I'm thinking is we'll just adjust this loose road here to align at 2 points, and we'll have another bridge. We'll have a 19-meter bridge there. All these roads shall probably be deleted or removed at some point or changed. But for now, that's basically us happy. Now, what I should have, in fact, I've got a backup of this anyway, so it doesn't matter for me. So I'm going to... So this is me saving the overall PDN file, which... So that's this here. Now what I'm going to do is delete these layers, because now we want to take this into nitrogen and generate a brand new DTM row. So I'm deleting all the other layers. Once we get to this point, we need to invert the image. So image, flip vertical, like that. And for some reason it gets read upside down. And then we want file, and this is really important, don't just press save, otherwise you're going to save over your PDN, lose all of your layers, lose your height map, lose your biomes, lose everything that you've got on there, and you're just going to have a height map basically. So be careful at this point. But save as, and we want to use this import underscore hm dot and save it as a PNG. So I'm going to click here. Now this is going to directly overwrite the height map. That, in fact, it's not. Just ignores. I've got a backup of this one as well, so it doesn't even matter if this didn't work. So I'm just going to save that. Already exists. Let's replace it. Now the beautiful thing with nitrogen is it lets you use a PNG. And previously what I would have done is save this as a TGA file. I believe in Alpha 17 you would then delete the raw file, fire up a new game, it would read the TGA, generate a new raw, and that was your terrain done. But that doesn't seem to happen now. So what I'm going to do is use nitrogen to basically generate as a DTM raw file from this Heightmap, and this can, I'm sure you can load up loads of different file types with nitrogen as well. But I don't have Photoshop, I don't have the means to edit a raw file, and I'll be honest, even from looking at how I'm doing it here, my sort of graphical skills at building height maps and stuff, I'm not terrible. I get the gist of how it works, but I'm not an artist by any means. So that's me now. We've now over at this file, and what I'm going to do is just close that. So now I can open this up. There's the channel that we've just made, so that's right. And the beautiful thing is we can get this back up, and now we can be ready to edit and go back in and see everything that we normally would once we get this like converted and fired up in game. So keep your PDN file. Your PDN is kind of like your project work, and then you save from this over here, and then as long as you keep your world backed up, you can never really go too wrong. So nitrogen, I'm just going to minimize paint.net for now because we're kind of done there. I don't have too much experience with nitrogen. I've had a bit of a mess around, and naturally it opens on the wrong window. So two things, it makes an output folder. I'm going to call this up here Project Slaanhatten, because it's going to look into this folder for a file named that. Just going to copy back there just in case. If you don't do this, it'll make the folder whatever name you set, and then it's going to error here and tell you that it's looking for the file. I use this option over on the top right hand corner, use import heightmap.png, POIs, none, only generate heightmap. So nitrogen doesn't take too long on my machine, but I can imagine with some worlds it will. And if you don't have a good machine, then this might take even longer again. But generally speaking, this UI kind of glitches out for me at certain points, but I just fire it back up. It does exactly what it says on the tin though, and it's really worth having a good fuck around. So anyway, this should be all we do, and there you go. There goes the UI going. If I click that, so you can see already in here, in the Project Slaanhatten folder, it's working away. Is that it done? Is that everything? I don't even, I'm sure it's supposed to give us a bloody raw file. So it done the last time. Right, 2 seconds, I'm going to have to fire that back up. Right then, none off, on map. In fact, do we want to just over output? Let's reset that back to default. Import. Just generate height map. Okay then, so I'm just going to press this. Now it's going to error. Can't read input file, could not import height map from nitrogen map /info. So that's what it's looking for. That's where it's trying to look for it, which is here. So that wasn't there before. So what I need to do is copy that. I just want to try this again because I'm sure it generates a raw file. Let's give this another one. Nitrogen will generate an output. Nitrogen map, not empty. What the fuck? Copy there. Delete. Nitrogen molded output nitro import. Oh, is that something that's on Steam? It's not related to 7 days or the stream at all. Right. Image cannot be read, can't read the input file. Now why the hell is that? I wonder if I've broke that somehow. Now, if I go back. Right. Let me go back into my backup. Let's replace that. So that should be now unedited. Right, and let's just see how that goes. Because I did use the original Heightmap to make a new raw file in nitrogen. So that's right, that's all good. Okay. Delete. What is it doing? Could not import Heightmap from blah because it wasn't there. Yeah, it worked straight away with the Project Slaanhatten one. I'm immediately suspecting have I saved in paint.net with some stupid setting that's actually possibly damaged the image somehow. I don't know how nitrogen works when it comes to reading shit like that. Right then, let's close that. Otherwise, I'll end up overwriting something nasty in the archive, which I don't want to do. Alright, so we're back at the base file again. We're going to go Project Slaanhatten. No, 7 days today. That should be fine. Oh, or select option check folder, for fuck's sake. Cancel when not empty. Right then. So we're going to work with the old file anyway, just to see if it generates with the raw file from this original one. So it's importing the Heightmap there. Terrain generation, 11 seconds. Trying to remember what I fucking done now. Because I made me flat world in nitrogen. That was the first one that I'd done. So the only thing I can think of is through blending or through some other. What if we bring paint.net back on? Oh, I've closed it. Delete. Flip vertical. See, it's a bit harder to see with the grid on there when we're getting close, but if I would just take the grid off. And I'm just wondering, because I know the biomes PNG is really sensitive to this sort of stuff, and if you end up with weird fucked up shades and but we'll try the process once more, just in case I'm being an absolute potato. And I want to try this anyway. I'll whatever it outputs, because obviously it's making that Heightmap generated file. So even if I get the same results from doing it again, we'll just throw it into the game world anyway and see if it generates something. So PNG, I'm going to stick this on the desktop this time though and import over that. In fact, no, I'm not. That's 47 days to die data. What's Project Slaanhatten? Ding. Right, so let's close that. Open this again just to make sure it's got the modified bit on, and it does. So in the Project Slaanhatten folder, why does it move? Copy everywhere else. Import, generate. Okay, so it's doing something, which is always a good sign, but it looks like it's just going to give us that gen. No, bested itself by a second. is this not nitrogen tidying the file up? It might be that. Alright then. One way to find out. Unless the game's reading PNGs now. I don't know. Jan Heightmap. So I'm gonna make myself a shit folder here. In fact, actually, I'll close that down because it's only going to glitch out anyway. So what I want to try, because I've definitely done this with the flat world, and I'm fairly certain I've already modified the height map once earlier as well. So I'm just going to try this gen map in the game itself. So in the olden days, it would have just been a case of deleting the DTM raw, which I'm just going to copy for now. Delete the processed raw. And we want don't need to do anything with the splat tray, to be honest. Now I also want to get rid of that. Because I'm fairly certain the game is just going to tell us, you know, it's either just going to null ref and I'm going to have to quit out, or bring OBS back up and we'll get in game. Where's it gone? Right then. So yeah, some fucking super cool video this turned out to be. It's just because I was so used to doing it one particular way, and then it just didn't quite work the same. So we would normally, once you delete the raw file, you would expect the game to hang when it hits the initialization stage. That used to be when it would create the raw file from the dtm.tga. Boom. No height data found. So all that means is the height map that I've output from nitrogen isn't named what it needs to be named, assuming it still works. Yes, we're quitting. Damn it, I'll just stick this on the side screen for now. Where we show 7 days how to be a good boy. Right, so the game's firing up. I'm gonna bring up the worlds folder again. Oh, stole my cursor. Ah, did I even copy that height map in? I don't think I did. Which fucking Project Slaanhatten folder that I put them fuckers in? Right, where do I need to be? Need that open again. Nitrogen. Where the fucking hell did I put them? Yeah, I'm detecting a bit of a pattern here. Right, here's nitrogen. Is that a modified file? No. Do you know what it is? I think I might have been working. No. How did I just lose that? Okay, not to worry. We'll just make another one. So as you can probably tell, I prefab a lot better than I world build. Save as. Just dump it on the desktop. Yeah, it gets a bit frustrating doing shit sometimes, like, but you, there is tutorials out there on doing your height maps. I just think things have changed since 18. Not that I've done much through 18, but I was active during the experimental. So this is now a PNG, which is there. What the hell is that? Nice. We'll bring that onto the screen. So some of this I did at Worlds. Right, okay. I'm going to delete those. We're going to bring this back. I can't remember what it needs to be named. Just going to fire nitrogen up again quickly. Import underscore Heightmap. Right, you're good. You're all good. There we go. Done. Oh, it's because it's totally the wrong map. um, Here we go. So now this one. I'm just going to put they there for now and do one more thing. Oh, for God's sake, man, this fucking app. Doesn't seem to be too bad when all you're doing is running nitrogen on its own, but the second my computer is doing anything else, it's just a matter of time before it goes mental. Generate new. So we're going to just generate a full map here. But we'll do it with no POIs. I just want to see if, because obviously nitrogen's designed for you to just click all these filters away and give you a one-click world generation. Copy the folder out of here, dump it into the game, and it just works. And if we go back into the worlds, there, this is what we want, the mystical DTM raw. Now, why is it giving us the gen HM, but not the raw file? But maybe it's, Maybe you've got to do that to actually get it to generate the world. I think that's probably what I've done, you know. Told it to generate new, but then had that changed. Anyway, let's give it a blast. We'll see what it does. Yeah, output. Because that it's the raw file that we need. That's the one that we'll want. Right, it's counting sheep, so that's always a good sign. Oh, fuck. I'm sitting staring at this folder thinking, where the fuck's me bloody stuff? Right. It knows this is the one. 7.5, 10. This is it, boys. It's even going to give her a dinky little preview map as well. Main TTW. Give us the raw. Give me the raw. There it is, DTM raw. So basically, where I've failed is this POI option needed to be on generate new. And that's basically, right. So I don't know, maybe you can play with these settings and just generate different height maps without going through the process of making the full world. Oh, these previews are fucking cool though. But there's with channel. As you can see, it's the right way around again. That took fucking way too long. But the bonus is we know exactly where we went wrong. So, just to recap for those who have just jumped on, to modify the terrain, first thing we've done, we've opened paint.net, we've imported all the different files as layers except for the processed. So that's biomes PNG, which you can see, the height map that you would have generated either in-game or through nitrogen. And then I've got my splat 3 and I've even got a layer on that I draw on to put ideas and stuff like that. We've made modifications to the background layer using the brush tools, using the colour picker to get the right elevation. We've also used the splat 3 as reference to make sure that we're drawn in the right place, while also being in-game to check the heights as well, just so that we can know. So I measured, for example, the bottom layer of the sewer, and I know that I've scooped out too much terrain. I'll probably be 1 or 2 blocks below it. So we might end up with a little pocket, but to fix that, we can add some terrain filler. That's not a problem. But we've modified the file. Then when we're happy with the modifications and we want to generate a new DTM to use in the game to see the modifications in game, we've deleted the other layers of the PDN file. We've went file save as after flipping the image. It has to be flipped. Then file save as, save the image as a, if we go back up here, how can I forget? Import underscore hm .png. So after I've saved this, this is what I ended up with. Let's just don't save any of that. We've then opened nitrogen. I'm losing myself. And then in the output folder, after installing nitrogen, we've made a Project Slaanhatten folder, which we've set here in nitrogen itself. In the folder, we put the Heightmap that we've just saved, the import hm.png. And then the fastest way, I think, to generate it is to use the settings that you can see here. So we're importing from import_heightmap.png. Map name is the name of the folder we're telling it to look for the heightmap we're using. And then we need to generate new where it says POIs. Now I've got the scenario set to no POIs, and you can see in the preview it hasn't put anything on there. We don't need the buildings, we just want the raw file, which is this bad boy here. So this should work. This should work. So we've got a raw file, which is basically nitrogen's done the heavy lifting. It's converted this into the file that the game reads to generate all of your terrain. More importantly, this is going to generate your distant terrain as well. So all the hills and stuff on the map in this file you will see in game off in the horizon, as long as it's within the distance. In your actual save game, in your world folder, we now need to delete DTM raw, which is gone. We would then delete DTM processed, which is also gone. So I deleted that out. So we're pretty much good here now. So now I'm going to take the raw file from the nitrogen output and copy this in here. There we go. And now I can flip yous back over into the game. And we can do what we should have been doing about fucking 20 minutes ago. There we go. Right. So you don't need to reload the game itself. You can quit back to the menu, modify the height map, and then just load it up in the world editor to instantly see your changes. Why would it create a new world? And this will actually be a lot faster than my old methods because it's not generating the DTM file each time. Though I suppose you do have the extra carry on. But I suppose on the side screen you could keep nitrogen open, keep the little output folder set up, and then just keep hitting that generate button, feeding it in a new one every time you make changes. It's going to add a few minutes on, but the overall process when you know which buttons options to have set isn't as painful as what I would have thought. Or you could just be an absolute fucking wizard and draw your height maps in the fucking raw format in Photoshop. Alrighty then. So we can see already this is just what's visible or what's not visible because there's fucking fog there now. But instantly I've overwritten the map and we can see the channel. And I think we've gone way too much on this side and probably not quite enough on this. But that'll be fine because the terrain in the prefabs will make up for the gap as long as there's no way a pocket switch will check. So the main thing we're going to be concerned with is the height. And do we need to put an extra layer on the bottom of these? But let's go and have a fly through and just check that out. But you can see the world's loaded, no errors, no funky shit. Just drew the road down. And there we go. So there. And this is because we colour picked it 30, like the shore over here at 33, and this is actually 35. But this isn't too big of a deal. We can literally put 2 layers of terrain filler under this entire prefab. And that'll fix that straight away. So I'm not concerned about that at all. The main thing I'm bothered about is look into the distance now. We actually see the mesh file of the prefabs as opposed to like little blobs of terrain, because it actually seems, even though because of the blend I'm not far enough for this lip, but it still works fine. It's not cutting into it at all. If the corners is this good as well, I'll be a very happy chap. I'll just flick the chat back onto the top. So yeah, if you like this horseback tutorial, that way we got there eventually, don't forget, smash that like button. But yeah. So it looks like generally we've got to make up those 2 extra layers on the prefab. This is going to be a hard one to gauge. So here, again, you can see we've took off too much, but I'm not too worried, because what you have to imagine, you can't see them, but we would have a street running off from here. This is going to be a corner section, which is, if you look into the menu, in fact, I'll just load one in to show you, and I'll give you an example of it lining up. And again, this is where the planning and all the time spent making good pieces to the right sizes really starts to pay off. Because it means even if you're a little fuck up like me in the world editor, using modifying height maps and stuff, you can still account for that fucking retardedness and build into it. Actually, naturally it would want to go that way, so I don't want to fuck this up too much. So before I rotate it, I want to lift it up and then just press X, and then basically we line this up with the street. So let me just check the map. So yeah, so essentially we've got, this is basically just the same as this. We've got a cross section of bridges, and we'll have a junction in the middle. So the junction isn't there yet, but we can easily see if this is going to have to be high, I think, isn't it? To factor in the lampposts. It's probably going to be about there. So we'll place that down. Oh, and how is that for a fucking guess? Like, literally perfect. So as you can imagine, we've got a street here. We would have another street running down here, which is going to fill this gap up. These are filled with terrain filler. So all these gaps will be taken care of. And then we're going to have a city block here anyway, which will just take the lip. But I mean, now that we know how to generate the DTM properly from nitrogen, you could spend another half an hour just, you know, staying zoomed in the map, using your prefabs as a reference point, and then just, you know, bringing this terrain ever so slightly back out. And the adjustments we're talking about are probably 5 or 10 meters most of the time, so it's not a, you could set your brush wide enough to fill this in one bloody swipe. And that little bit of work is well worth being able to just look down a long system like this that's below ground level and actually appreciate the mesh files and the shape and the size. And so you can see there the whole sewer system in its glory. And even at this point, you can see the curve in the terrain, but even off into the distance, we can still see the mesh file, and it isn't interfered with at all. So in all honesty, I would, if I was going to give myself a score out of 100 for how accurate I was, I'd probably roll with maybe about, we'll go 75. And I'll say 75 because it's entirely fixable with prefabs. Like, by the time the streets and the city blocks go on all the sides of this, you won't notice this at all. However, if you weren't building city blocks and you were just running like streets at the ground level, this is going to look well fucked up and wouldn't work. So we lose 25% of our points for that. But no, if I can do it, and we've only been doing, we had about 20 minutes at the beginning looking at prefabs. So we've been at this for just over an hour, and I had planned for this to take about 20 minutes, so... Oh shit, pressed the wrong button. Get that down. And just to show you what I meant before when I said I can fix this with streets, this is actually probably going to be a street. and it's going to be a 9-metre street like that. So, because the biggest issue we've got really is the sewer system's floating, and that will collapse. Like, it will not last fucking more than 2 seconds as soon as someone walks over it. Or as soon as someone breaks something, I think that's when it's just going to disappear. So we'll get a corner junction with sewer entrances on all sides. And then, I don't even know how high to go. This whole fucking little dip is really throwing my judgment off. Let's place that in. And it needs to move. Can't be right. But it is. So there's a bit of a gap here, but you'd have a little bit of terrain with your road and then straight out onto the bridge. But I want to drop a street there, and yep, this is 9-metre as well. So again, you can get a better idea where the street is going to eat up most of this, but we might still catch a bit of it. Pop you there. Drop another 9-metre street in. And that should be perfect. Yes. And then just to show it off, we'll put another junction here. Is that a T-junction? And I just put it down like 5 seconds ago. I can't even remember which one I used. That's a corner cross-section underneath. Cross-section T-junction. Yeah, cross-section, fucking hell. Hello, Team Chat. I never thought I would ever find myself saying that live on stream, but yeah, do you know what it is? I put a little bit much more effort into that comment than was probably needed, but I had a right nightmare just trying to... It wasn't too bad using the Slaanhatten Heightmap because I drew it in Alpha 17, so it just worked. All I had to do once I was finished deleting things was make the image layer behind it, flatten it together, plug the holes up, and it was fine. But when it came to trying to copy bits, because I wanted to try and copy a nitrogen town because of the fact that it was all drew in grids, and I wanted a piece of that on my map, and I'm like, how the fuck do I even open this up to bloody view the thing? But yeah, mate, there's, I don't know, I'm still not 100% on the whole process, but at least you've got the starting point with a little bit of fucking around. I'm pretty sure you'll be able to do what you need to do. Right then, so I've just saved them streets in. So just to recap, what we're looking at now is we've just created this massive channel, but as we can see, it's a little bit too wide. And I was just saying earlier, we can't actually hide a lot of these fuck-ups with prefab. Well, we can entirely hide it with prefabs. It's not an ideal solution, and you can't always use it depending on what you're building. But for the most part, it'll work for us. So what we're going to see here is when now that this is saved, when I reload it, it's going to be a lot smoother. And you'll see we shouldn't really have to deal much with gaps and air pockets underneath. Whereas this side, even once the street goes in, we're still going to have a big... We're going to have to bring that out at some point, I think. Well, let's save this for now, and then quickly reload. In the corner sections of the sewer are going to look really fucked up here. But when I was looking at the map, I needed 3 pieces before I could have a substantial piece to show off. So I kind of put a lot of effort into the test section, but just rushed the corners together. Yeah. So you can see we're still eating a bit of the gap, but there is no air pockets at all until... so this is just missing from the corner prefab anyway. Now, we could always junction this off and bring the 19-metre road down here, and that would obviously fill a lot more of the gap up. I'll be honest, once I'm more familiar with the height map, I should do a video, because, like I say, I found a lot of old comments where the common issue that people had or used to have was using the eraser and making a hole in the image and not realising, and then loading the world up, and wherever there was one of these holes, you just have massive, huge sections of asphalt. So every time you're Googling problems with the Splat 3, it always seemed to be that sort of stuff. It was Guppy. I found a thread on the forums. Oh, that didn't sound nice. I found a thread on the forums that someone was basically asking how do they make the Splat 3 images visible. And when he had mentioned GIMP in the alpha channel, I was all over that shit straight away. But I think what I ended up doing was saving the Splat, was making the map visible by lowering the alpha and then exporting that from GIMP as a PNG, and it basically looked like a Splat 3, but it kept the black background. And then I took that into paint.net and used the little wand tool, because it was mostly drawn in a neat grid. You know, it took us about 20 minutes to clear off all the black, and then I was able to sort of make the black layer, flatten it, and get that loaded up again. But getting rid of the background let us basically copy a big grid section of the map, which is how I've got... So I've got all of this. I basically took a 2x3 section of grid from nitrogen, and if you look at the dots, it's like they're all copy pastes. Because I wanted a grid for reference to work on. But yeah, to get those off a nitrogen map into my custom Splat 3 was an absolute fucking ball ache. Like, really, really took us absolutely ages. Well worth it in the end, but yeah. Why does that look like it's got water? That's something weird going, because it looks like these are all covered up as well. But yeah, we only need, like, I don't know, I would say a decent way to sort of end the sewer, or not end it, but just finish off the sort of scooped out half pipe section and then have some sort of interaction with the river. And I did on the original Slaanhatten. I've had a bit of a dam and it went straight out into a deep river, and we used the waterworks and a couple of other custom prefabs out of the compo pack to build a big custom sort of area. But because everything's built and measured, it should still definitely work. Can you still do height maps, like making my own mountains and whatnot? Yeah, dude. When I was actually modifying the way, that's what this entire video has been about. What I'm basically, I use nitrogen. Make whatever modifications you need. Obviously, lighter goes higher. I tend to color pick, just so when I know in game, like I came in game, and I knew that, you know, this is 33 meters. It means I can directly go to paint.net to where I know this fucking part of the map is, and click and colour pick and know that I'm painting at 35 meters height. You know, and you can make reference points with a lot of things like that. But basically, it's make your modifications in paint.net or whatever you're using, save it as a PNG, and use nitrogen to generate a world with no POIs using your height map, and it'll spit out the DTM raw, and then you can just delete that out of your world folder, throw the changed one in, and just load that straight up. I think you have to delete the DTM processed raw as well. I don't think it generates that in the world folder though until you load it up into a survival game. I don't think the world edit accounts for that. But yeah, I would say from about 20 minutes to about 40-ish kind of makes sense, and then you've probably got about 25 minutes of me scratching my head wondering what I was doing wrong, and then 20 minutes of us actually fixing it and doing it right. So we did kind of cover what we wanted, just in a bit of a long-winded roundabout way. And as much of a pain it is to click through to find the part that you actually need for people who are watching at a later date, sometimes it's nice to see the mistakes being made, because I like to think of myself as a normal person, and sometimes it's not obvious, like what you've done wrong. But yeah, so for the sewer system itself, really the immediate changes that need to be done is they all need extra 2 layers. I would rather add the 2 layers to the prefab and just have it spawn as terrain filler and disappear, like all of this stuff that I'm flying through now, than risk making more of a mess to the height map. However, I will definitely come in and bring this terrain out a bit more, because that's far too wide. I'm from northeast England, Newcastle, so I tend not to have the webcam on because I've really got to pull faces to try and speak slowly. Otherwise, if I break into slang, you catches after I've had a few beers, you'll not understand a single word that I say. But yeah, definitely 2 layers onto the bottoms, and I'll be honest, I'm quite happy with the way that these will blend into the streets. So I've got some designing to do, like what do we drop into this corner section prefab? How do we interact with the sewers? Do we just cut the losses and just cut these off as dead ends? Because the streets themselves will still carry the system on. Or do we just make it so that, I suppose we could have one simple tunnel at just like an L shape that all of them connected into. Because if we'd done it in the same style as this one, because this is all over the place now. By the time we're finished making the city, these types of tunnels are going to be the bane of people's lives. But yeah, man, the videos are there to help people. Even, like I say, if you can use the prefabs yourself, it is a starting point for your own stuff. Everybody's more than welcome to do whatever you want with them. I've always been quite liberal with helping myself to other people's things, in the name of saving time. You know, why reinvent the wheel? So I said to Captain Crunch as well, he was talking about a crazy city project, which sounds really interesting. And it's like, if I can save you a few hours work, then, you know, awesome. So yeah, we've got a little bit of, I'm just wondering, is 2 definitely going to be enough? I might actually nip into the editor. Oh, not continue. Because those corner sections are probably going to be the last really arsey bits. Everything else that I make now is either going to be a variation of a street that already has a working sort of intersection system, like with the coloured bits that connect together, or it's going to be something set piece, like, I don't know, a train station or something that has like a subway station or something like that, where I might want to build 1 or 2 tiles that cross into the sewers. But see, I don't want this middle. I was just about to say there, it means I could have this water a bit deeper, but I like the idea of being able to weave across on your mini bike, and people are only going to get pissed off when they come like, oh, look at this super system, come driving down its speed, they go into the centre bit, and then they've got to get off the bike, pick it up in a totally realistic way, put it in their bag, just to climb out of a 1 metre high bloody puddle. Right, so that's 1, 2. Ah, shit. We don't want to do that, but we do want to do this. I think what I'll do as well is we'll stick water in these. What the fuck? Oh, for God's sake. I keep forgetting in the editor you can't actually place anything below ground level. So what I actually have to do is move the prefab up. But yeah, I'm pretty sure these extra 2 layers here should sort them right out on the bottom. Because the main worry is if these are floating is they'll just start collapsing. If we're unlucky enough to have an air pocket underneath bridge supports and things like that, it'll start collapsing. And don't worry, by the way, that's not a finished bridge. These were just placeholders to kind of, so I had something to scale that would take up the physical space. You can see I'm not too arsed about how it joins to the street, but we've got to have a working system that works in the middle. Started on PS4 version, played the hell out of this game, so sad the way the console ended up. Yeah, for real, man. 7 days could really do with the console population. It's just a shame what happened with Telltale Studios, really. I mean, you can't really blame the pimps for that one. Ah, do you know what's going to happen, though? We're going to have to drop all those sections. Oh, no, we won't, because we'll modify all of the sections by the same amount. Oh, fuck's sake, that means we're going to have to move all the sewer city blocks. Because all these prefabs are going to now rise 2 blocks, and they're going to be higher than the sewer. So I'm going to have to drop these ones a bit lower than the rest of them so that they line up with the streets properly. I'll be honest though, I mean, they got the rights back to the console port of the game. I'm sure they acquired the rights back so that it was available to be developed again should they choose to, but they'd be fucking crazy to not put this on the next gen consoles. It would make them a fucking ton of money. Even if they didn't just make a direct port, they just took the most feasible features and gave you something that fucking worked. Because from what I hear, the console versions were really, like, performance-wise, I know you didn't get too far with updates, but performance-wise, they didn't look that great. And then obviously the lack of multiplayer and decent PvP servers and dedicated server support and all the other beautiful, beautiful features of the PC side. Right, let's save that. Let's get 2 layers under the other 2 pieces, because I am quite curious to see if this does work okay. I'll be honest, if you're around for about another 20 minutes, I'll add these terrain layers on and we'll have another crack at the height map, because it shouldn't take anywhere near as long. Because at the very least, I need to bring that hill back up. I hate using this on big prefabs. Right, don't hold shift, just press the friggin' button. Yeah, like I say, when you look at the way it's going, like dynamic, what was, how do you mention in the live stream, the dynamic mesh files for the prefabs, and I just think of how much extra load systems like that are going to add to the game, and it just makes us think they're never going to be able to do a true port, like a one-for-one feature sort of exchange with the consoles. But I do think they could genuinely transition the best parts of the game over and make a fucking fortune. It's, in my eyes, it's the best survival sandbox that we've got, really. By no means perfect. There's a lot of games that have little bits that do things way better, but it's just, overall, as an all-for-one package, I don't think anybody's come close to 7 days. Unless zombies aren't your thing, in which case, yeah, you've got your orcs and, you know, you can run around with your rock and your dick hanging out. So we've got 2 layers on that. Let's just save that straight away and get the last one up. I should be dropping water on it. Oh, it's got water now. I think it's because I turned my water settings down. It just makes it really hard to fucking see. It's probably going to disappear now as well that I raise it up. But I'll be honest, for only having to really rely on nitrogen now to generate that DTM file, we're in a good spot with in-game tools in the third party. Because, I mean, you could save this version of nitrogen that's released and just use it forever. And just use it simply as a Heightmap generator. Whether it works to generate random gen worlds or not, you can use it to make a good working DTM file. So it's not like you're ever going to be reliant on someone else updating something or keeping it maintained. You just download a copy and you keep that fucking safe. So between that and the in-game editors themselves, yeah, we're in a pretty good spot, I think, now for bouncing between terrain edits and prefabbing. I wanted a State of Decay 2 development tool like that. Do you know what it is? Can't really comment much on that because State of Decay 2 was kind of one of them games where I was like, oh, that looks really cool. But it had a lot of Left 4 Dead style mechanics that I just didn't like, and I never actually got around to fucking playing it. I did play the original one. I did keep trying to get into it, but it's like by this point I've got 7 days to die, and I know 7 days like the back of my hand. I think even if you gave me a better game, like hands down what I thought was a better game, I think 7 days might still pull us away just because I know it better. It would have to be a really fucking good sandbox, and more importantly, have really good editing tools or be really easily editable. It blows me mind that I can build a fucking city and for 4 years I've really kept the idea going, but in something like Minecraft, you still kind of generate a nice looking fucking village. And it's just because I'm assuming it must be so much fucking harder to do. No, we don't want the world here, we want that. So we're going to check those prefabs with those extra 2 layers, and I'm pretty sure this should be more or less perfect now. Then we'll stay in the world editor and switch back over to paint.net and bring those hills back out. I've never used the Dying Light development tools, but I did play quite a bit of Dying Light. The whole parkour system. I liked how detailed things were as well. There was a lot of shit, a lot of junk and rubbish lying all over the place. So, problem numero uno before we can do anything. All of those sewer blocks are now 2 blocks higher than what they need to be. And this is why. So all I would do to fix this is just make the bounds visible. Highlight it, move it down. Place prefab, save. And you do that to the whole fucking lot. What I'll do now is just jump over and we'll focus just on doing the terrain. You know, we wasted a lot of time fucking around learning it earlier on, so let's just keep that focused and I'll tidy all this up off stream. I'm pretty sure you know how to click something, hold down G and move it and then press the save button. And if you don't, I've got about 4 years worth of videos on how to do that sort of stuff. But for now, we'll bring this over. So straight away we can use this as a reference point because I think, yeah, probably about twice the width of that street needs to be this height. So what we'll do is we'll get that ready. Right, I'm going to quickly nip the toilet because I'm absolutely dying here, and then when I come back in 2 minutes we will rattle through modifying the height map, because this is going to be fairly straightforward. There's no guesswork. We know roughly where we are and how far we need to go, so hopefully it's going to be paint a line, save it, go through the process of rebuilding the raw file and getting it loaded back up, and we'll do it in 20 minutes. That's the goal. So I'll be back with 5. Actually, I'll have your message in chat just in case people wonder. If you can stay at some green blocks for 5 minutes. Be back. Right, I'm back. So, let's slide you out the way so I can still see. Bring you down. So let's go back onto the side window. Right, I'm going to close nitrogen for now until we're done in paint.net. I'm going to close all those down for now. Everything worked, so we don't need that shit anymore. And this can stay at Colossal Titan for 5 minutes while I quickly dig through these. So what I need first is my actual world folder. So there's my 7 days to die, data, worlds, Project Slaanhatten. So for those who missed the beginning part, a quick recap. In paint.net, I'm going up here into layers, import from file, and I've basically imported my Heightmap, which I've either generated in game, I've made from scratch, or I've generated from nitrogen. You will already have a Heightmap if you're modifying a random gem world, for example, so that gets loaded in at the bottom. I've got my biomes in there so I can see where my biomes are. And this is basically so that when I'm working on whatever layer, you can still see. And it means I can save this independently in its own, in paint.net's own format as like a master file, and just make all of my copies of the actual files from this. So that's how I got that. And now what we need to do, I'm going to take biomes off because that's just bloody annoying. The colour makes it really hard to see. And you click too many times. In fact, can you just use control? You can. Right then, so we're ready to start drawing this, but before we do, I'm going to flick these back onto the game so you can see exactly what I'm going for here. I'll just bring that back up for myself. So if we look at the map, the last road on the grid, now what we can see is blue is just the bottom of the hill. And basically we want the terrain at this height to come out at the very least hot at that point where it goes from black to blue, because the street that's going to go down there will take up about 14 meters, I believe. So we can get away with a little bit of a mess when we know it's 100% going to be hidden. So for the most part, I'm just going to use the width of the road as a reference point, and we're going to basically go probably twice the width, make the road this height, and then the size of the road again. Excuse me. So let's get back over to the other screen. And again, so I'm quite happy. We've already accounted for the extra 2 layers, so I can just color pick off there. And if you go to more here, this is the shade that we're on, 12. So if I click this, back up to 18. Now, I don't think the difference between there and there is actually 6 meters in game. So there's one example of one sort of one point of shade not being the equivalent of 1 pixel in height, of 1 block in height, sorry. So you do have to, you cannot just go entirely off this. What I like to do is know how high something is and then color pick knowing the height and working from that. If you try and build a height map working around buildings and prefabs and stuff like that from scratch without any reference points, then fucking hell, you're taking a big gamble. But brush wise, because we want to be quite controlled, I know that those are about 15 thereabouts. So for the brush, so sorry, I'm going to colour pick the top because we're adding to the hill here, not taking away from. Get the brush up. I want a fairly steep slope, but I still want it to slope a little bit. Actually, I'm just going to leave it around 75. And we'll make this maybe, so we know the road's 15. Go a bit bigger. And if I do it from there, right, actually, just quickly, because I can see if I zoom in a bit more. Here we've got this little darker section here. So I'm just going to colour pick that, go back to my brush, make this 100%. I'll just get rid of that. And what this means is we're going to get solid, smooth, flat, perfectly flat terrain. Excuse me. Oh shit. Undo. And that's why I like paint.net, because you can undo on a brush stroke basis. So just little pieces at a time. And all I'm trying to do here, not extend the hill out, get rid of this excess. Because we know everything on this side of the road is just a gap. Now, I'm not going to touch the corner bit yet. We'll bring this bit out first. So now we're going to lower the hardness back down to 75-ish, 73. Yeah, that'll do. And if I draw from the edge of the road, I should get about half of the radius of the circle fairly solid, and then the second half is going to be where the slope is. In fact, you know what it is? I'm going to leave that on, because I think that is actually going to be okay. Now again, too little is still preferred to too much. Too much is going to be visible if it looks wrong, if we're unlucky. Too little can still be sort of accounted for with terrain filler on the prefab. So, yeah, gets skinnier as it goes down. So let's just bring this out a little bit. So me fucking crosshair disappears when God, I'm thinking it comes out too much. Don't like modifying the terrain very often, so I'd rather like make it to the point where I don't feel like I need to change it, at least. I'm not saying perfect, but I'll start you about there. Oh, fuck's sake, I need to colour that I see first. Just undo you. And we also need to draw on layer 4, not the fucking Heightmap. How's that looking? That'll do. So back to the background layer. Now we're going to go backwards. I'm going to colour pick this one. And I just want to soften that down. Not get it away completely, but just if we can get it a bit more consistent with how much it's fucking sticking out, then, you know, I'm happy. And things like this, I would honestly, it's... When you need to make changes to the height map, put them to one side and then tackle them all. Have a session where you really go to town and take a bit of time to make them look right. That's still a bit off. And again, I'm putting way too much effort and get it right here than what you realistically need to do. But, you know, Right, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that edge. So what we're going to do is quickly dive back to the game and check this side, which I think is more or less okay. We're not going to have to change that. But we definitely need to do something with this. So let's get OBS back on. Get back into the game. Like I say, there's a little bit of sinning going on here, but for the most part, it's going to be held in the streets. So, like I say, I'm perfectly happy with that edge. However, this one, I'm pretty sure I was quite bad. That's north. Yeah. So you can see the slope starts just behind the street. So, again, it doesn't need a lot, really, to be honest. The thing is anything more than 2 blocks, then we might have to start modifying city blocks to have extra layers as well. So I'd like to at the very least bring that up. As long as 2 layers of terrain filler on the base city blocks can fix any little corrections like that, then I'm relatively happy just to leave them be. Let's bring the chat back on the top. But that side isn't actually too bad. Yeah. And again, we probably need to just smooth the map out on this side, I think. Bring it out a little bit. But the other thing we've got to remember is all of these are to higher than what need be, so they look wrong on this side, like where they are relative to the pavements and stuff. But no, we've got enough to work off there, so let's go back into here. No, I'm going to get rid of layer 4 for this one because we don't need it. Let's colour pick from there. And what we're on, 25. Because this is a bit smaller, I'm going to make it ever so harder. And what it basically means is I'm not necessarily extending the terrain here, I'm just raising up the curved part, making it a bit of a sharper incline. Because for the most part, this side was relatively fine. What I don't want is these wonky little textures that we see down here. That gave that little chip and groove in the road. I want to make sure that this is nice and smooth. And again, we're just not necessarily extending the terrain, more just getting rid of that soft ramp and making it a bit more of a sharper edge. And fucking hell, man. Nothing like a straight line. So, there we have it. We've made all the changes that we really want to. So remember, at this point, we're working in the .pdn file. If you look at the top there, Project Slaanhatten.pdn. We aren't working on that. We're working on the Heightmap layer of this file. We want to keep this file though. So what I'm going to do straight away, I know these changes are going to be fucking class and I'm not going to have to change nothing. You might not want to do just what I've just done. You might want to keep a copy of this file. But, you know, if I fuck it up and I waste time, it's my own bloody fault. So we've got this image. Now what we want to do is make an actual height map we can use in game. So we'll zoom out. We don't need a biome layer anymore. We don't need a splat 3. And we certainly don't need lovely artistic layer 4. Next thing to do is go to image and flip quickly. And then save as. God damn it, save as. And then we're going to go and put it on the desktop. And now this is what we're going to feed into nitrogen. So It's import underscore hm dot png. So I'm going to select PNG and I deleted it off my desktop. So we'll just go import underscore hm, just like that. Let this do its preview bit. And to be honest, going back through it, it's not a bad process really when you do it right. I mean, obviously pending how long it takes you to do the generation bit in nitrogen, but for a no POI world, I'm still guessing it's going to take most people a minute or so. So that's now saved to my desktop. If I get rid of paint.net, we find that, and we'll bring that over here. Colossal Titan's skull. So this is my world folder. That is my PDN file. Now I've downloaded and installed nitrogen. So I just made a folder, chucked it in there, extracted it. In the output folder, in fact, tell you what, let's fire it up before we do that. I'll just open that now. Bring you over. So in nitrogen, this is the name of the folder it's going to make in the output folder, which we can see just here. This is all of nitrogen's directory. Output folder, that's the default, that's what we want to call it. I really don't need to call it anything in particular. But on this side, we want to use import underscore hm.png and then go to the output, create a folder named what we've called the map. Now all this works lovely, so I'm just going to delete that. Now I'm going to take my Heightmap that we've just saved, the import underscore heightmap.png, and throw it into the world folder that we've just made. That's set in here. So everything else now is done in nitrogen. And the settings, the important settings are on this side. So use import, POIs, generate new. That's where I went wrong earlier on. I didn't have that enabled. It didn't make the raw file. Everything else doesn't matter. I've changed the scenario, or you can see it. So I'm not generating POIs. This will save you massively on how long it takes nitrogen to do its thing. And you can see my client's glitching out already. So I'm just going to press generate world, and then you should see everything. Now, if you don't have that generate POI thing on, you only get these two files here, the genhm and the import what you start with. But you can see here, it's got the main TTW in the console on nitrogen. It's working away, it's telling you it's doing stuff. And there it is, DTM raw. So basically, this is the file that the game actually loads. So we'll let it do its thing. There's a preview, a whole bunch of other files that we don't need. When you're just modifying the terrain, the only thing you're worried about now is the DTM raw. This is what we need to put back. So if we go to the worlds folder, this is what we're replacing. So we just delete that. I'm not too sure what the processed raw includes, but basically this is generated from the DTM raw. And because we're replacing the DTM raw, this will have changes based on that file we've just gotten rid of. So delete that as well. And then we put that in. Boom. So I'm quietly confident we'll go back into game. And before this starts tripping out, because we've just changed a whole bunch of the files, we're just going to exit. Get the chat back up. And we are literally just going to reload that world. Now, what you'll find is it'll hit the initialization stage. If you look at the text on screen, this is the part where you used to have to sit and hang waiting for the raw file to generate. But as long as we don't error here, we're perfectly fine, which we shouldn't do. And there we go. That's looking good. All right. So straight away, let's start at the top. So because I haven't been here yet, the map is still showing. So if I stand there, close the map and bring it back up, it hasn't moved all that much. But you can see it's had a definite impact. So this is what we had before. And this is the difference between about 75% hardness on the brush and 80. You've got a very gentle curve. So at 100%, that is perfectly flat. And again, we've got a couple of spots here where I've taken a little bit too much. Three or four blocks deep like that is too low, because it means if you put a city block in that isn't that deep as well, you're going to have little pockets of air which could affect structural integrity. Though for the most part, it's a very, very minor worry, especially considering where it is. But I mean, for you, Team Chat, essentially the important part for you is we've just modified it and we've loaded it up and it's worked. You know, that's the process kind of end to end, really. Now it looks a lot better here because this is where we smoothed everything here as well, didn't we? And we've totally eradicated. You can't see it at all. What does it look like from this side? So yeah, it's basically doing 3/4 of the street before you get that really steep incline. So there we have it. Nice. So all that's really left now is we'll get these drop back down a couple of layers. I'll do that off stream though. And then I think the next video, rather than push on to a new episode in the city building series, we'll maybe do another chill build session because that went quite well the last time. And we'll look at getting like maybe these bridges done. We need a 19 meter and a 9 meter version. So basically a bridge that would fit the smaller road and the fatter road. And then we need to do the corners and the inverted corner decide how we're going to link these corner prefabs into the sewer system, if at all. It'd be a waste not to. I mean, all these connectors are here for a reason. And there we have a nice open sewer in the making. So when I was saying earlier, I'm thinking another open section probably takes it just to the mouth, and then we can branch out back into this sort of style stuff. You know, the larger, flatter concrete areas with a nice tidier lip against the river's edge. And then it means we can kind of make an industrial zone that makes its own little loop. We'll do this area down here, come all the way around under the bridges, probably just make some steep cliff or something there. But yeah, easy when you know how. We could have probably shaved half an hour off this video writing down the buttons that I had pressed the last time instead of just trying to fucking wing it. But no, I hope you have found that useful at least. We're at the 2-hour mark and I'm absolutely starving. I'd like to go and get something to eat. So don't forget to smash the like. I hope this has been a useful video for you. Feel free to share it around. The more viewers that see the stuff, the more people that take part, the better it's going to be. And of course, we'll see you next time. Like I say, probably later on in the week we'll do a chill build and we'll work some more on this open sewer. And then that's pretty much another system ticked off the list almost. So until the next time, chaps, thank you very much for watching. It's much appreciated. Thank you very much for the likes, and I shall catch you all later on.